Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuka, Boznail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Respawn, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. I'm going to hand over to Google and Discord so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Cowbell, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll talk with these guys. Can't show anything they talk about in real life.
Good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Morning.
Well, that's why the housekeeping questions go unanswered.
Right.
Nathan, I posted 2 pictures in Master V showing perspective.
Okay.
Like your comments on it. I mean, it's obvious to the audience, but if you can comment, because you do well on the subject with the horizon and everything. The apparent horizon.
It speaks for itself, really. What do you want me to say?
Well, just in this pre-show, use it as a teaching lesson because it'll be a good cutout because the second picture is more of a drawing of it.
Okay. Yeah, it's showing the point that things disappear into the distance, labelled as vanishing point. Also, their physical geometric sphere edge reified horizon as Earth curve.
Right, so now they poo-pooed perspective all along, and now when we're holding them to their geometry for their sphere, they have to jettison that and say, well, it's just optics is perspective. It's not really there.
They might be able to say that, but their mathematics doesn't work like this. Their mathematics would have the side of the observer's head in the picture, and the target, let's say it's a telegraph pole, wouldn't be getting smaller into the distance. It would just be represented as a depictorial telegraph pole with a feet and inches or meters value attributed to it, and then the horizon wouldn't be a horizon. It'd be marked with an X labelled as Earth curve edge, point that's going to block the thing, i.e. this lamppost or telegraph pole, into the distance. Well, they don't account for things getting smaller into distance when you have a whole number for a target and it stays the same at any distance. Obviously, these telegraph poles get smaller in angular size as they recede into the distance. But according to Earth curve mathematics, it's the same exact size because the actual size doesn't change, which is correct, but only works in orthographic view when you remove this aspect of perspective and call the horizon Earth curve rather than a vanishing point.
All right, I'm going to stick another one that shows what you just said coming your way. All right, you got it. That's what you're talking about, the side on?
Exactly. So this is what we fondly refer to as Muppet vision, otherwise known as an orthographic view. So the orthographic view, let's just let John in, bear with me a sec. So in orthographic view, i.e. this representation, then you've just got a tree on a spherical surface, and you've got lines drawn between target and observer. But the target and its actual size doesn't matter in relative terms when it's in a depiction, because it's just going to always have the same, this is a 6-foot man, that's a 100-foot tree, and how far away is it before the curve of the Earth gets in the way, and that's what they call the horizon. In this, it's marked as true horizon. But it's the point that the Earth curve edge obscures things. Well, this is a single point, which isn't actually... Oh, it is. It's labelled true horizon. Single point that they think is the horizon, when in reality a horizon is spanning the left to right expanse of this image and has things receding into the distance as they reduce in angular size. Well, that reduction in angular size is completely negated when you represent the side of your own head. Obviously, in this image, you can't see the side of your own head, but this is how it would be depicted in Earth curve maths, so they can take the effect of perspective and call it Earth curve. Not a vanishing point anymore, an Earth curve edge obstruction.
All right, so you see there, it's got, just to get more comments on this, it's got astronomical horizon, so that's one horizon. Visible horizon, that's two. And the true horizon, that's three. But if you look at the picture that I sent you prior to that, you could only see one horizon. There's only one horizon always. And what is the demarcation of the astronomical horizon in this Muppet vision?
There isn't one. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in physical geometric sphere edge mathematics is an obstruction called Earth curve. This point here, a geometric tangent point with a straight line drawn to it. Well, that geometric physical sphere edge horizon, formerly a tangent point they call in this example true horizon, is an Earth curve obstruction getting in the way of things in the distance, when in reality things recede into the distance to what is called in artistic terms a vanishing point. Well, in reality terms, it's exactly the same as in the artistic description. You have a vanishing point as things get smaller. This telegraph pole here looks bigger than this telegraph pole here, which looks bigger than this telegraph pole here, but they're just getting smaller in angular size until they get too small to see. So beyond this point, you can't see any telegraph poles, even though I'm sure there is telegraph poles beyond the horizon. You just can't see them. They're too small.
Can you go to the actual picture, the first one of the tracks?
That's what I'm using.
The horizon.
That's actually what I was using.
Okay, perfect. So if anyone's watching this, how many horizons do you see? I could only see one, where the sky appears to meet the surface of the Earth.
Yeah, and that's what a horizon is. It's the apparent location where the sky meets the ground. Well, the apparent location where the sky meets the ground is singular, non-physical, apparent, and we only have one of them. It's just not geometric physical Earth curve edge obstructions. It's a vanishing point.
All right, so now the motivation of me putting this up. We were talking in chat a little bit earlier about discernment. Now, if you're a baller or a flat earther, it doesn't matter, and you see the depiction, the third picture I sent of the Muppet vision, and they've got three horizons, and you see the drawing prior to that where it shows one horizon and how perspective allows for something called the vanishing point, because you just can't see far away, so it just vanishes. And then if you look at an actual picture, the one we're looking at, what discernment are you using? Or can you say that the drawing with the Muppet vision with the three horizons is false? Because you would have to, because you could only see one horizon here, but the ballers refuse to do so.
Well, yeah, the three horizons are absolutely relevant and good point, but we're seeing the side of our own head in this depiction now, aren't we? And when does that happen? When you take a picture? Because this is how it will be compared. This is how Earth curve mathematics will represent an image like this. And they'll calculate how many feet and inches. If this was a depiction with a skyline that had buildings, they'd say, why is there so many feet and inches missing from the bottom of the building when the bottom of the building has the most severe angular limitation and disappears first in a clear day due to angular limitations, exactly as perspective causes these lampposts or telegraph poles to get smaller and smaller into the distance. So, based on simple hijacking of perspective, putting the view side on, like you see yourself and the target in the same picture, you don't, and then removing all aspects of perspective and calling a vanishing point Earth curve. That's what they've done.
Good.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Choco.
Hey, Chocolate. Good to have you.
What's up, guys?
Missed you yesterday.
I just came in and say what's up because they got me working on a new project at the job, and it's a little bit hard to be on here and doing that at the same time. So that's why I haven't been on too much.
Fair enough. You don't have to make any excuses. There's absolutely no obligation on your part. So
No,
don't
I know.
apologise.
I'm just saying, I like coming through here. So just saying what's up. because I got to go back in. I'm on my break right now, so I'm going.
I was wondering where you were, Chocolate. Thank you for that news.
Well,
And it sucks to
thank
be
you,
at
Neil.
work.
I appreciate that.
I'm right with you. At my workplace, as soon as I pop off you and say something, yo, come on, we got to get this done. Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I'm learning something, so it's like, they're like, go through the phone. They know I'm very capable of doing whatever I got to do and being on the phone and chewing gum and all that, but they just want to be it.
Before you go, Chocolate, give us the nice black swan when the R question comes up.
Black swan.
I'll edit it
I'll
in
answer
later.
all of them for you. No, black swan. No. No.
Perfect.
Am I missing one?
No, I think you added an extra one.
Well, happy Friday, fellas. I gotta go.
All right, good
See you
to
later,
hear
Chocolate.
from
Have
If
a
you
good
guys
day.
have a nice long after show, I come back. I'm gonna go on my lunch, so
I'll do my damnedest.
try to keep it long.
Later.
Catch you guys later.
All right. Yeah, that when I first saw you show Muppet Vision and call it that, orthographic view, I've seen those things. I really never paid much attention to it, but as you broke it down, I mean, it's like you just show people and say, well, this doesn't exist in reality. None of this imagery in this cartoon is actually real. No one observes life this way.
No. You've got to do something, right? If Earth is flat, obviously and observably, and you've got to somehow reify a model that has a physical edge, well, the horizon seems like a logical place to do it. Because that's where you would have Earth curvature if Earth was a sphere. You'd have like a hill in the way blocking stuff in the distance. That makes sense, right? But they've got to actually have it. It can't move with the weather and never be in a physical geometric sphere edge location.
Yeah, I mean, just words like that, can't move with the weather. I mean, there should be a big clue to ballers who are, if they're seriously interested in finding out what the nature of this Earth is. How can something physical move with the weather?
I mean, it can be prior to its physical geometric limits because of the weather, but it just can't be beyond it. You can't move a physical hill with the weather. If it's nice and clear, you'll see a nice clear obstruction of whatever was behind it. And that's what they're suggesting.
Right.
They're suggesting a hill, Earth curve edge, gets in the way. Well, that's not going to move beyond its physical constraints with weather.
Well, that's why the black swan is worded the way it is in the Motostolans, right? No more than?
That's just simple geometry. I mean, yes, that is why it's worded that way, but it is just simple geometry at the end of the day.
Right, but they have to use that simple geometry. And when Andrew Thomas Young uses it, it doesn't match what the geometry says. So he's misusing that geometry, but he's quoting it.
Exactly.
Well, that's go on, John.
I was going to say the whole idea of that pseudo-Romanian force space, non-Euclidean measurements, then it just throws everything out. Like, why do they even point at anything in physical reality anymore?
That's just a way of taking the force that they had that had some feasible or at least explainable grounding in physical reality with Cavendish. Well, they needed to take that into the completely abstract for all of the things that they assert within that abstract mathematical reification that they actually think they live on now. Well, maybe you could argue, as we do, that it takes it one step away from physical reality, which it does. But that is simultaneously the intention in doing so. So they don't have any comparisons. All of them are going to be made in a place that doesn't exist, that you can't travel to, that only exists in maths. Well, unless you understand all of those particular details about pseudo-Ramonian force space, the pseudo bit isn't necessarily enough for anybody to recognise that it's not real. Well, just the geometry's not real, just the description of it, they might cry out. But ultimately speaking, we're talking about a place that doesn't exist, and a concept of space-time bending, which cannot be bent. It's a concept. So the whole thing is a nonsense, but they need it to be in the conceptual rather than the real.
Yeah, like I I thought at one point in time they would start coming in and arguing the black swan as proof of relativity. It hasn't happened yet, but I think it's coming.
I don't think so. I mean, like I say, I think the point of taking it to the pseudo-Riemannian force space is to take it away from the physical so that they can talk all day in the abstract. Well, if you're talking all day in the mathematics rather than the real, and when you had originally got a backstory that had a physical reality or at least a quasi-experiment attached to it and a description of something physically happening, well, why would you want to take it away from that unless you didn't want it to have anything that was detailable and pull-apartable, moreover, in the physical realm? So that's why I think they've taken it there. Now, if you're saying that at trench level they'll do that, I don't think anybody in the trench level is capable or competent of doing that in the first place. And even if they did, it's not their rhetoric, so it matters not. It's kind of similar to saying, well, we wouldn't expect to see drift. Well, that isn't your rhetoric, while you might want to argue it here with your cognitive dissonance when describing 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth underneath stuff not attached. To tell us it doesn't happen at trench level is to defy the rhetoric. So feel free, if they come up with a proof for relativity when describing the black swan and its moving physical, non-physical, yes, we see, no, we don't see geometric horizon, then, as I say, number one, I don't think anybody's capable of doing that at trench level. And even if they did, it's not their physical reality. And the whole point of pseudo-Riemannian force space is to take it away, in my opinion, from physical reality anyway.
Well, if you give them time, they would.
Time's just a concept.
Oh, that was a pun.
I know, but it's still relevant.
So on this, I like that question John brought up, because wasn't the Cavendish for the actual was the density of the Earth, and then people overlay it with proof of gravity, and then now they have to go into a concept because you can't ever show mass attracting mass. So they said, how do we keep that lie? But since we can't show it physically, how do we keep it still? So they go into the pseudo-Riemannian force space. Wasn't that the evolution of that argument?
You're very concise. Well done. Yeah, precisely.
So whenever they can't prove something, they have to go into a concept.
Yeah.
And that's their MO. That's why I said it's only a matter of time before they try to bring, the geometry of Earth into that as well.
Oh, they've already done it. If you ask Rumpus directly, he'll tell you the geometric physical sphere edge horizon only exists in the maths. That is to say, this only exists in abstract mathematics, not in physical reality. So at some level, whether or not it's consciously or unconsciously, are aware that this only exists in the maths. That is to say that it only exists in the mathematical description of something physical. Well, it would be a description of something physical if it described something that was existing in the physical realm. That would be a physical Earth curve in the physical realm. We don't have that though, do we? There is no Earth curve. It's a non-physical location, apparent location where the sky meets the ground. Not a physical Earth curve edge, a hill getting in the way, as asserted inside view, when you see the side of your own head and have all aspects of perspective removed. Well, yeah, you can take it to the abstract. It was always there to begin with, though, John.
Well, no, I was talking about the part where Al-Biruni reified the horizon. Like, that part was supposed to have been claimed as physical.
Yeah.
And that, they deny it now, but, that's really their only delusion, I guess, left.
But it's not delusion, it's cognitive dissonance at that point. At the point that you argue Al-Biruni measured a physical geometric sphere edge horizon and derived an R value by way of a dip angle measurement from the not actual horizon at 90 degrees to his zenith when he assumes he's standing on a sphere, well, you can hold that position, but then you require a physical geometric sphere edge horizon for Al-Biruni to measure with a straight line to a tangent point. And then you're presented with this image on screen now, and you go, well, the horizon's beyond the physical geometric limitations of a sphere. How's that possible? And they say, well, the line to the horizon's bent. All right, so Al-Biruni has got a straight line, but we've got a bent line. So you're saying that the horizon can physically move its position? How are you ever going to take a geometric calculation of that then, if you've got a bent line to it? And you can't see a geometric horizon, and that only exists in the maths. What did Al-Biruni measure again? Well, they've got to simultaneously hold both positions. It's not a get-out. It's the Arwinian paradox. You can't have both a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon capable of blocking boats and buildings and a non-physical apparent horizon that's moved by way of the line to it being bent when the model's based on a geometric tangent point straight line to that physical horizon. You can't have both. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in their globe Earth mass is physical and geometric, unlike the horizon in reality, which is non-physical apparent.
I would like to point out the only geometry to the horizon seems to be in our eye and the way it's shaped.
But it's not geometry. When you're looking at something that's non-physical, how can you assert that you can take or account for anything geometric? That means it's got a shape. That means it's got physicality. Well, it hasn't. It's a non-physical apparent location. Whereas when you say, well, if I take geometric considerations as described in this picture, then I can imagine that there's a dotted line to a physical location that I can't see or measure. And the reason I can't see or measure it is because of the line being bent to the actual horizon. Well, if the line to the bent horizon isn't physical, how are you going to get your tangent point horizon to derive R? Well, you can't. Bye-bye globe geometry. Black Swan kills it. Hey, Brian.
I can't argue the globe that well anymore.
You're doing well, John.
Nathan, could I do a 10-minute presentation on the show? Maybe only 8 minutes during the show.
Say again, sorry. I was dealing with children.
Oh, sorry. Could I do maybe a 8-minute presentation on the show sometime during the live show?
Yeah, you're going to read out your text from your video today.
No, not exactly. It's connected to that. I'm just going to point out something that, not that we missed, but something that we haven't been focusing on, to do with the boilers, and a little bit of history lesson for the boilers. That's all.
Yeah, by all means. You want to do it like?
I think you're gaining momentum here, Brian.
Do you want to do it after housekeeping like yesterday? Sorry, bear with me. Do you want to do it after housekeeping?
Whenever it's easy, whenever it's the best time for you, I'm fine with that. Any time during the hour is fine by me. So
I do quite like to get housekeeping done as a starting point for the show. And the reason I'm qualifying though is there's a chance that somebody will want to dispute, challenge, or whatever. That means that it might drag it out, and I might forget about your 8 minutes. But just as long as you don't feel like you're being rude if you say, by the way.
No. What I do is I go by the tone of the show. If I have to do it the after show, that's fine as well. There's no hassle there. But if I get it into the live show, I will. Let's see what happens. As you said, it could be someone coming, someone challenging to happen. So I mean,
by experience, that's generally not the case, though, is it? They've not really got anything to challenge our housekeeping questions with. So, as much as I like to live in hope that someone will come and somehow prove we can have gas pressure without a container or something of that nature, I doubt that will actually happen. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, Then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by Adam Meakin, Arwin trying to join in the intro, as he does every single day. We've also got Neil, John, Brian, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Morning, morning.
Good morning.
Friday.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Friday, or if you're watching it live, it's Friday. And if you're watching it on a re-up, it's probably Sunday. But meanwhile, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Not even on Friday.
Friday make a difference?
Nope. Just being relevant to at the moment.
Excellent.
It's too big. The ball's too big.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
That 15 degree that the sun is doing, yes, but not the Earth.
Nope.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there. Whatever it is. Or it at least appears to be over there.
Nope.
That's better, Owen, isn't it? It appears to be over there.
It's true, though.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, there's no hypothesis ever put forward for gravity. Not by Isaac Newton, not by Henry Cavendish, not by Charles Vernon Boys, not by Albert Einstein, not by anybody.
So, Brian, this was in the pre-show. So that's why they had to make it mathematical and conceptual, because they can't prove mass attracting mass.
Well, they can't prove mass or bending space-time these days. You know, before they couldn't prove mass attracting mass. Now they can't prove mass as bending space-time, but they can't prove space-time or space. You know, the next thing they're going to be trying to do is trying to get out of not having to prove what a graviton is. That's their next port call.
Right, but in mathematics, it's just the equation. If they get the equation to work out, they look at that as proof, but that's all conceptual. It's not real.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole world is mathematical, isn't it? The whole of the globe model is mathematical. Everything connected to it is maths. It has to be, because they can't physicalize any of it. They can't prove it, and they can't physicalize it. The only part of the globe model that has any relevance is buoyancy. That's only because it's the only actual physical thing they can kind of show in reality. But their explanation for that involves gravity. So,
But any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Can I come back
We're
to the
not
previous
done yet with
question,
gravity, Nathan.
Oh, got lots of excited people. Who wants to go first? I had Adam first. Go on, Adam.
Just to go back to the previous question, I think it might be a time for a tweaking of the question, because any scientific evidence of gravity requires us now to ask further. I think we should ask for clarity of that we're only prepared to accept scientific evidence for Einsteinian gravity, and we're no longer prepared to accept a 105-year-old out of date Newtonian. There's none for either, but I do think we should clarify we're no longer prepared to accept 105-year out of date stuff.
To be fair,
Yeah, but
this
that
was discussed.
105-year out-of-date stuff is also not proven.
Hold on,
So,
Owen. Yes, this was drawn a line under 2 months ago, and it was discussed while you were here, Adam. We said we'll draw a line under this, no more 106-year out of date Cavendish, CV Boys, Reverend John Michel, Newtonian, in quotes, gravity. None of it will even be entertained anymore. And since then, don't get me wrong, there was one occasion where someone managed to weasel it in and it did get argued about. But there we go. That was with a newbie, somebody who'd not been, their mate had sent them in.
It's all retro, man. It's all retro. They just want to go back to Newton. Weren't they trying to work out this new version of gravity where it's Newtonian again and Einsteinian at the same time or something? At least in the math.
Yeah, sorry. We're requiring scientific evidence either way, Aaron. So let's just get back on track, right? Regardless of what they're claiming and how they're claiming it. If their new hotness is some new hotness that involves a juxtaposition between pseudo 4 space and 3 space, then fine, let's see it and let's see if it's got scientific validity to it. But on the other hand, I'm with Adam, right? They'll have to present the new hotness rather than the 106-year out of date Cavendish, CV Boys, Reverend John Michel, incorrectly identified as Newtonian gravity. We're just not going to accept that because there is no scientific validity. It's not even their current science, in quotes.
Yeah, they're trying to mathematicalize kind of a 3.5 space version of gravity as opposed to a 3 space or 4 space. Any changing of the mathematics, of any changing at all of any what Rumpus and them call reducing of Einstein's field equations. As soon as you change any of his equations, then they're yours. They're not his. He didn't put them forward. If I paint a mustache on the Mona Lisa, can I still claim it's Leonardo da Vinci's or whoever painted it?
It's how he would have painted it, though, right, Brian? It's how he would have done it.
Yeah. No, I'm with Adam, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. Adam, you're right. We drew a line in the sand and then we've kind of forgotten about our little line.
And I'll give you your correction as well, though, Nathan. That's subtly done. So 106 years, I stand corrected. Yeah, it's 21.
yes. It's 106 years out of date. But there we go. Moving on. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Nope. Against natural law.
Absolutely not.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
So you're answering the question with the presupposed spherical Earth. So the answer is no. It's presupposed.
Well, okay, fair enough. Go on, whoever that was.
No, Black's debunked the notion of a spherical Earth.
Well, you're not leading me very well for my next question, are you? Any evidence of the R value?
Can I go back to the question again? I'm like lagging today. I was going to say, we do have some evidence in that we have a magnetic field, but to how we could then attribute that to something that couldn't produce a magnetic field is interesting.
I can do it with the way they'd do it if you want. Do you want me to affirm the consequent for you?
Oh, go on then.
Okay, if the Earth is a sphere with a molten iron core that's self-perpetuating, then we will experience magnetic fields. We experience magnetic fields. Do you not agree? Are we all in agreement? We all agree we experience magnetic fields on Earth. Therefore, the Earth's a sphere.
Shit. You formulated that so well, I may have to change my worldview.
So it's if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. If I eat 100 hamburgers, I am very full. I am very full, therefore I ate 100 hamburgers, even though I'm actually full of 10 pints of lager. And that's why I'm very full. In other words, the assumption of the former doesn't necessarily prove the latter. So if P, then Q, well, it doesn't necessarily follow that Q, therefore P. I am full, therefore I ate 100 hamburgers. Well, in this instance, if the Earth has a self-perpetuating molten iron core, that's your presupposition, P statement, then we will have magnetic fields. Now, their Q statement is typically a true statement, like star rotation or magnetic fields or something that you can actually observe, because then you take the actual observation, that would be to affirm the consequent. If P, magnetic fields, therefore Q, Earth with a self-perpetuating molten iron core. So if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. If Earth a sphere, then magnetic fields, therefore Earth a sphere. Affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy with the begging the question thrown in for good measure.
Well, and a law of contradiction, because this is the point. Even if you go within that and you gave them that you attributed it to the molten iron core, the scientific knowledge, the factual knowledge we have about molten iron cores is they can't produce this field. So to me, there's a law of contradiction there, because you're saying the thing that's causing it is something that we can demonstrate can't cause it.
Just didn't listen carefully enough. I love being a glober. No, I said if Earth a sphere with a self-perpetuating molten iron core, and if you're going to correctly identify the fallacy, it'd be special pleading. So get your fallacy identification correct.
Yeah, I missed the caveat. If
yeah, obviously I assume Earth a sphere, and obviously I assume molten iron core at the centre of it, and obviously I assume that contradiction in your vernacular is self-perpetuating. Therefore, how can it be a contradiction if it's perpetuating itself? Obviously, like I stated it does, when I assume that it does, and it's at the centre of a sphere, giving us the magnetic fields that we actually experience, and we do experience them. Therefore, all that nonsense I just made up is all true.
See, there's the lesson. Never give a ball or anything. Don't. You'll just get mugged with it.
I'm more and more thinking it's human nature. The whys and wherefores of why people can so quickly get into the role of like trench level baller, even if they're not one, they instantly become one and have all the tactics. I think it's human nature, and it's been played on by the narrative programming. In other words, when we say, "Oh, that's baller behaviour," it's like, no, it isn't. The amount of times I have the exact same obfuscation, double speak, rumpusing from my own side when it's something that they don't want me to be challenging them on.
I think I have a challenge for the Curie point from a baller's perspective.
Okay, go ahead. Then we're going to move to Brian. I think that was the last housekeeping question. So go ahead, John. Then we'll move to Brian.
Since heat and pressure are tied together, it would be impossible for us to perform a scientific experiment with the pressures that the core experience.
What core would that be? The core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth now?
Of course.
And why would we be presupposing it and then trying to violate it or prove it either way when we've just assumed it in the first instance? Yeah,
so it's got to be true.
No, it's got to be true. No, I'm not a baller anymore. I'm not on your side in this scenario. No, not therefore true. Therefore true because you made it up yourself?
Well, formal logical fallacies are okay if it's not a formal debate.
So what you're saying is, if I formulate a formal logical fallacy, but we're having an informal discussion, then therefore it's no longer a formal logical fallacy. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Well, it's an informal logical fallacy.
No such thing as an informal logical fallacy.
Well, there was right there out of John's mouth.
The reason it's called formal is because of the form it takes. And its form is if P then Q, Q therefore P. That is the form of the formal logical fallacy. Affirming the consequent being the title of the fallacy. The description of it being if P then Q, Q therefore P.
Have we not had that one as a from a baller? I'm sure that was tongue in cheek that we've been fed that. This is not a formal conversation, therefore it can't be a formal. I'm sure that rings a bell.
Human nature, like I'm trying to argue, right? There's no ballers here. I'm sure there are on the Discord server. They're just being very quiet. Or maybe there isn't, I don't know. Either way, I think it's just human nature, and some of the way we've been programmed into our fundamentalist zealotry about a ball utilises some of that when it comes to a defence mechanism put out to somebody who challenges it. I don't know how, I haven't figured it out yet, but it just seems like, given that both sides do it in the same exact way, that it's not a baller trait. It's a people trait.
Well, that's because when you're growing up and you're, how can I put it? You see the ball all the time and you see them always giving these arguments against the ball. Then when you come to a flat earther and he asks you a question, like one of the housekeeping questions, you're going against all of that, and you're going to commit a fallacy just because you're defending all this programming, but you don't even know you're doing it until, if you're patient enough, someone explains, hey, that was a presupposition. You never proved that point. P, then Q. And so they never stay long enough to do it, because the human nature is, there's no way this guy is wrong against all my teaching. So there's the human condition. Instead of being critical and discerning of the actual argument and the words being spoken at that moment, it goes back to all that pre-programming.
Has anybody got anything else to add on this? If not, we're going to go to Brian. Okay, so
Just to say that it's the logic that is misformed. That's the point.
yeah, a logical fallacy is a flaw in logic, correct?
I got something.
Go ahead. Do you want to, while we're waiting, Brian, hold on, Neil. Hold on, Neil. Hold on, Neil.
Word.
Hold on, Brian. Just while we're having this back and forth, do you want to share your screen and get it prepared and everything? Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to know if mathematicalize is a word and physicalize is a word.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Have you not got Google? Physicalize? I don't know. What was the other one?
Mathematicalize. He just wants to realize.
I mean, when describing that fallacy, it's the fallacy of misplaced concretism. So to make something which is abstract concrete. So it doesn't say to physicalize it. So I don't know. I'd have to look it up, Brian. Neil, sorry. I don't know.
Physicalize sounds like it's bringing the physical, or bringing conceptual into physical world.
Well, that's to reify. That's what that is. That's called reification. The fallacy.
You did say.
Go on.
You did say, playing along with that question, you said misplaced concretism.
Yeah.
I know. It flowed with physicalize and mathematical.
Well, that's how they describe it within the fallacy. When you reify something, the map is not the terrain. Well, that's the fallacy of misplaced concretism. It's to make the map, or in the case of the globe Earth argument, the heliocentric model, actually the world you're living in. Well, that's to make it concrete. Okie dokie. Right, I've got you up on screen, Brian. Do you want to do your thing? Go on to whatever page. Make sure you're not on mute.
Yeah. I'll do that now. I shouldn't only take a couple of minutes. I should take. Okay. I'm going to start with the definition of the Coriolis effect and give a little bit of history on it. Then I'll move on to the second part. Okay. What is the Coriolis effect? The Coriolis effect is a visual effect that is observed from the rotating non-inertial reference frame by an observer looking up into the stationary inertial reference frame at an object either stationary or moving in a linear path that appears to be deviating from stationary or straight, making a perceived curved path. This is purely a visual effect that does not have measurements and calculations. It does not create weather systems. It has no connection to a person's latitude or pendulums. It is not something that airline pilots need to account for, nor is it a force or something that is observed from the stationary inertial reference frame. It is only observed from the rotating non-inertial reference frame. So if the Earth was rotating, we would be observing this visual effect all the time, but that never happens at the end. The reason I read this out is this is the original and the actual definition and description of the Coriolis effect. There isn't any other one. This is the real one. This can be shown and replicated and demonstrated over and over and over again. This is all it is, just a visual effect. But some decades ago, it was pointed out, because this was the number one proof of Earth rotation for a long time. But some decades ago, it was pointed out that this is not observed. So mainstream science, instead of actually just accepting that maybe they might be geocentric, that we might be geocentric. They couldn't leave go of the heliocentricity. They were too engrossed in it and too long in the tooth in it. So what they did was they had to convolute the conservation of angular momentum. So what they did was this. We get a lot of claims from both sides, not claims, but a lot of argument from the both sides concerning the Coriolis effect. And it's because the actual Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation. But their version of it, it becomes an actual deviation. So I'm going to show you exactly what they actually believe. See, mainstream science, they needed to have the world spin. And so what they did was they decided that, let's say this is the equator region here, that if you make a straight line here, from here straight up here to, from South America up to the eastern United States. What they did was they decided that we would be conserving the momentum of the globe's rotation at the equator region, but when you go up here, you will actually land in the ocean as opposed to land in the eastern United States, because the rotational speed is different up here at, let's say, 40 degrees north or 30 degrees north, whichever. And that actual deviation, let's say you're in a plane or whatever, that actual deviation that you would encounter in that belief is the Coriolis effect according to the both sides. So the Coriolis effect is actually an apparent deviation, but they have this convoluted version of the conservation of angular momentum, and due to what they basically did was they took the conservation of angular momentum, they mutated it, and what they did is they made it the conservation of miles per hour momentum, right? And so by doing that, that allowed them to claim that an airplane could travel from South America to the eastern United States in a straight line, but what would happen is that by the time it reaches the eastern United States from the northern South America, is that because the two rotational speeds would be different, that the plane or whatever would be conserving the momentum of 1,040 miles an hour at the equator, but up at the eastern United States, let's say Florida or whatever, it's not in their model, it's not rotating at that rate. But they are calculating everything in miles per hour. But that is not the conservation of angular momentum. As right here at the equator and up here and down there, it's all moving at the same angular rate, because angular speed is measured basically in revolutions and radians. It's not measured in miles per hour. So up here or down there on a rotating body, whether it be on a sphere that's rotating or on a flat disk that's rotating, doesn't matter what part of it you're on, you can walk in a straight line in or out from the center out to the outside or back in a straight line, and you will always be moving at the same angular rate. So they are completely convoluting the conservation of angular momentum as a kind of a weaselly way to make some kind of a calculated actual deviation and calling that the Coriolis effect. But it is not the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation, not an actual deviation. And the conservation of angular momentum is going to be the same regardless. Once you're at the same exact line, no matter what part you're standing on of that rotating body, you're still moving at the same angular rate, the same angular speed. There isn't a difference between the equator on a globe and 30 or 40 degrees north or south. You're moving at the same angular rate. If you were to use miles per hour, you're talking about a distance around at that latitude, at that particular point, a distance around the rotating object, in a distance to travel. It has nothing to do with angular speed. Your angular speed is exactly the same, regardless of where you stand or where you stand or sit or whatever on a rotating body. If you're moving in a straight line from here down in South America up to the United States, then if you're conserving the angular momentum of this rotating body, then your angular momentum will be exactly the same all the way up. It won't change. And this is what they've done. They've convoluted they've convoluted and mutated angular momentum. Sorry, Nathan, you're saying something?
No, I didn't say anything, but I will once you're done.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me a moment there. Okay. So what they've done is they've made a mutation of the conservation of angular momentum. They've turned it into the conservation of moles per hour momentum, and they've taken what was an apparent deviation, which is the Coriolis effect, and they've made it into an actual deviation calculated through their conservation of moles per hour momentum. So they're 100% wrong. This is not the conservation of angular momentum. And moreover, the conservation of angular momentum is not a continual thing. So you won't continue to conserve it. You will conserve the angular momentum or linear momentum momentarily, but it's only momentarily. You will not continue to conserve. If you leave this reference frame of a spinning body, you will not continue and move in a straight line towards the center or north of it or whatever. You will not continue to conserve that momentum. That does not happen. The conservation of momentum, whether it be linear or angular, is a momentary thing and not a continual thing. That's the end of the
A couple of quick questions then. For you, Brian.
Sorry, presentation.
Yeah, no, a couple of questions before you say you finished. So, with Coriolis effect, when you say you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you would be on the ground moving with a non-inertial spinning reference frame, correct?
Yes.
And the description of Coriolis effect is only describable from your vantage point, viewing it as you rotate underneath stuff, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So it is only relevant to you and your observation of something, correct?
Yes.
Now, the thing you're observing, does that have any effect based on your observation of it? Is your observation of the thing in Coriolis deviation, are you in any way affecting it by observing it?
No.
So, in other words, the effect you're observing in Coriolis is of something not changing its actual path, but seeming to because you're rotating underneath, correct?
Correct.
So therefore, what they're doing, by your explanation, is taking something that's a visual effect observed as you spin underneath stuff, and describing how much something in the air will actually drift, physically, when Coriolis is not actual drift. Appearing to drift, but not actually drifting, is Coriolis, and they're saying, well, it's going to retain velocity. Well, what's it? If it's Coriolis, it's you on the ground rotating underneath, not you in the plane accounting for anything. That's not Coriolis.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
So they're taking, they're substituting Coriolis effect for conservation of angular momentum, and the way they're doing it is taking an observation that you make from the ground and turning it into an observation from the projectile's point of view. When Coriolis isn't about the projectile's point of view, it's about you rotating underneath.
One correction on this.
Just one second, Adam. Go ahead, Brian.
Just 1 second. One correction. It's not the conservation of angular momentum they're using. It's the conservation of moles per hour momentum.
Yeah. Let me,
which is
Brian, can I?
Sorry, Adam. Yes.
Yeah, just so I can. Very well done. This appears to be what the ballers are unable to articulate when you challenge them on it. So my understanding, and it's clarified by what you've just said with terms of angular momentum and angular speed, is they take the concept of the angular momentum and the preservation of it, convert it into a miles per hour lateral movement, irrespective of the 500 miles. So at the equator, it's 1,000 miles, and then suggest that Coriolis is the differential difference of the lateral, the sideways speed, the east to west speed that you maintain when you take off. So when you take off at the equator and you go north, you were traveling 500 miles an hour north and 1,000 miles an hour to the west. Yeah. So everything stayed. But as you went further north, the Earth starts to spin at a different rate to you. So you're now up near Maine, and you're now traveling 500 miles an hour north, but you're also going 250 miles an hour west at the same time in their mathematics for their mathematics to work, because the only way the Coriolis applies is the differential difference.
Stop. No, that's not the way the Coriolis applies, because
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying this is their convoluted mathematics of how they're trying to then place this differential imaginary speed traveling sideways. Yeah, how that differential that you maintain at 1,000 all the way changes in respect, and it's that calculation they're doing. But it's the reality of that is that when you get to Maine, you're going 500 mile an hour north and 250 mile an hour west.
Correct, but as the projectile. So as the projectile, well, you're not observing Coriolis effect, because Coriolis is only observed as you rotate underneath stuff. So it's only ever you observing the plane seeming to do something it isn't, because you're rotating underneath it. That's Coriolis effect. So as soon as you start detailing what the projectile does, then you're no longer detailing what you observe of it as you turn underneath, which is Coriolis. So you observing it seem to drift from the ground as you turn underneath it on a roundabout, for example. So you're on a roundabout, you look up in the sky and you see an aeroplane. And you go, what do you know? It looks like it's going round and around and around. And someone goes, no, that's actually you spinning on the roundabout. The plane's unaffected by you observing it seem to drift because you're turning underneath it. That's Coriolis. You turning underneath, watching something with a path or otherwise seeming to do something it isn't. As soon as you start saying, well, but in the plane, what's actually happening in terms of Coriolis? Well, nothing, because you can only detail it from the spinning reference frame. They want to take an observation that's only possible from a spinning reference frame and detail what the projectile's doing. Well, no, it's about what the projectile seems to do as you turn underneath it, not what it actually does. What it actually does is irrelevant.
It's worse, Nathan. They're adding another force. So if we go back to the roundabout, what they're saying is when you throw the ball to the person on the other side of the roundabout, what's actually happening is the ball is not going in a straight path. It's continuing on the curved path of rotation as well as the straight path. And the reason we see the curve is that the circumferential speed on the outside of the roundabout when you throw it gets faster, and the circumference becomes shorter as you get to the middle and then as it goes out the other side. And it's those changes in the rotational speed that actually cause an actual real difference. It's not an apparent movement. It is an actual real thing caused by this additional sideways motion they're putting in.
Yes, I get it, but that has one severe problem. The problem with that is a true description of how a puck would travel across the rotating reference frame when attached to it, with, say, a very low friction rate. Well, then your attached circumference would have that apply, would it not? Yes, you don't have to agree, it's rhetorical.
Yeah.
The only problem with this example is that doesn't occur once you leave the non-inertial spinning reference frame. It's no longer got any drag.
Well, it's that pretending of sideways. That's what it's worse than just misrepresenting. It's adding in something else to try and then mathematically pretend that is the Coriolis, which is, like I said, the reality of the pretense is the plane's going when it gets to Maine, it's going sideways.
Perfect.
Sorry.
I just want to make the summary, Brian, and then I'll let you make the final summary. So, in summary, Coriolis effect is observed from the ground as you spin. So, think of yourself on a roundabout. That's how you'll be observing Coriolis deflection of anything. It doesn't matter if the thing's concrete into the ground and seeming to spin, or flying through the air and seeming to spin. It's actually you spinning underneath. So, it's the effect of you spinning underneath. You've got to be underneath, attached to something spinning, watching something not spin. That's Coriolis, just for clarity. Furthermore, as soon as the globe head opponent starts describing the path of the projectile and how the projectile would perceive things, or deviate or not deviate, then you're no longer describing Coriolis. Because I'll say it again, Coriolis is your observation as you spin, not the projectile and what it actually does. It's what you perceive it to do. So in the case of a lamppost concreted into the ground, as you spin underneath it, it seems to come towards you and then go away, and then come towards you. Even though it's not moving an inch, it's concreted into the ground. It's merely you turning underneath it. That's Coriolis. As soon as you start detailing the path of the lamppost, as a Cumvirus tried to do yesterday, well, it doesn't have a path. Yeah, it's a not actual deviation if it's Coriolis. The seeming path of the lamppost. Obviously, it doesn't have one, which is why I use it for an example. But the same principle is applied to a globe Earth if they claim it turns underneath stuff to give us Coriolis. It doesn't, so they have to take it to the projectile and qualify why it doesn't drift from the ground. Why Earth isn't turning underneath it, and if it was to be turning underneath it, how it would affect the projectile, and therefore how the projectile would compensate for it. All baloney, because it's only observed as you turn underneath. Go ahead, Brian. You can have the last word on this, and then we'll hopefully get some other opinions.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Okay, I'll sum it up. When it was pointed out to mainstream science that we don't see the apparent deviation that we should see if we're on a rotating body, whether we don't see the apparent deviation of objects moving linear or stationary above us in the sky, then what they did was they mutated the conservation of angular momentum, and they created a mathematical actual deviation, calculated deviation, and called that the Coriolis effect. So essentially what they did is they not only mutated the Coriolis effect, but they mutated the conservation of angular momentum. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent, Brian. You know, I didn't ever dream that we'd get further into pulling apart how they have convoluted this, but we are definitely breaking new ground in terms of the convoluted double screw mess that is their assertion of a angular attention being retained with an actual deflection, when Coriolis is not actual deflection observed as you turn underneath stuff, as a justification for why Earth isn't turning underneath stuff. Excellent, very concise. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thanks.
Did anybody else from maybe Discord want to add anything on this? Sorry, just bear with me, and then we'll go to Chris, because I'm assuming Chris wants to add something.
Just to echo your compliments there, Brian, that was excellent, concise, and really well explained, and to me,
thanks, Adam. Thanks
the exact detail, mate. Yeah, that shows the wizard behind the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're not showing. Their version of events is not the conservation of angular momentum or the Coriolis effect. It's a mutation of the two of them, and it's none of it can be demonstrated. So we can actually demonstrate the conservation of angular momentum all day, every day, and it won't be anything like they say.
Right.
Do you agree with the point, though, that when it's a mathematical flim-flam, but when you try and comprehend what they're saying is actually happening, do you agree with the point about the plane speeds? To get that thing, the plane has to have an additional, it has to be traveling 1,000 miles an hour sideways, doesn't it, as well, when it takes off at the equator? Because that's the mass they use, so that it's still traveling 1,000 miles sideways, but the Earth's now only moving 750. And that's what they put in to create the numbers to match the Coriolis. And that's fine mathematically, but it's laughable when you apply that to reality.
Yeah, because you have the plane flying backwards, catching up with Earth velocity when you're travelling west from the equator if you take off in that direction. So that's what QE will use as leverage when he expands out their argument. I hate doing this. I've got to be honest, both you, Brian, and Adam, as much as you've done a very good job. It pains me dearly to hear you, Adam, saying, and that's Coriolis. I know full well, without the full bevy of disclaimers, that you mean their convoluted gaggle screw of nonsense that they call Coriolis when you say that. Because meanwhile, Coriolis is observed from the ground only, and it's things not actually drifting, while we describe the effect that they call Coriolis, and how much the plane travels sideways when it's going north, and then has to compensate for the fact that it's actually losing a bit of sideways momentum because the path of the journey has got a different miles per hour speed when they're describing this as conservation of angular momentum, 15 degrees now, that doesn't change anywhere over the surface. Yeah, it's a complete cluster screw, but it's nice that I can now concisely summarize it. Again, much appreciation to Brian and you, Adam.
It's because of one fact that they've had to put all of this in, and the simple fact that the stars are on our side is the reason is because unfortunately the Earth doesn't rotate underneath the aeroplane. That's the reason for all of this nonsense.
Yeah, there's a massive begging the question fallacy.
Precisely.
The question fallacy is all it is.
If you want to keep it apart, then we have to do the same thing that we did with refraction, and that is give it a name. Well, with Coriolis effect, it's really confusing because it's not even a different thing of the same type. It's just a complete reification. So why don't we just refer to it henceforth as the Coriolis reification?
No. I think you find that this is going to be called Globiolus.
Yes.
What's that you say? It retains angular momentum, and Coriolis effect is actually my misunderstanding about what conservation of angular momentum is. Oh, I think you mean Globiolus, don't you? Because Coriolis is observed from the ground of things not actually drifting. Look it up. But your Globiolus says that Earth has the trajectory of the projectile accounting for this sideways motion when travelling north. Oh, right, that's Globiolus. Coriolis is observed from the ground as you turn underneath stuff.
But it's not the conservation of angular momentum. This is the other trick they're pulling. It's the conservation of miles per hour momentum in a mathematical model.
Yep.
Because it's not that either. So every time we say the conservation of angular momentum to do with Globiolus, that's incorrect as well.
Perfect. Oh, I love the fact that this linguistics. I'm going to get some contributed to me. Yay!
The conservation of apparent angular motion.
No, Arwin, it's already been named.
Shush. Get Earth is spinning first.
I've named it, Arwin. Just accept it. You've got your paradox. This is mine. Get lost.
Really quick.
Mine. You've got paradoxes. Get lost. Globiolus.
I think it was going to take a little longer than that to come up with something, but respect, Nathan. Yeah, I'll give you that. Globiolus.
Oh, God, no.
Arwin's not pleased. Look, I'm naming this one, Arwin. Just accept it.
What? Naming this one? You named the last one after me I didn't even do that. So you named the last one.
After you? Yeah. What you're saying is, even though the last particular bit of nonsense we identified, that would be the Arwinian paradox, moving the horizon with an R value you can't measure because it comes from a physical horizon that then wouldn't be movable. Well, that Arwinian paradox, Arwin's saying, well, because you named it the Arwinian paradox, therefore you shouldn't have this one because you named the last one me. Right, Arwin?
That's right. Let me name it. Let's call it Nathonian Coriolis. How about that?
Nah, because I don't want... The whole point of this is to take the word Coriolis out of it. So Globiolus takes out the bit that's real, which is the observation of not actual deflection from a non-inertial, that would be spinning, reference frame, like a roundabout. You observing a lamppost seem to move when it doesn't. That's Coriolis. Well, as soon as you start calling, well, the projectile's going to keep up with the 750 miles, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't want that being labelled the C word. I want that to be called Globiolus. We'll give it a G instead of a C. And insert globe, because it's their nonsense. Like this, yes, hurricanes. Here we go. This is a perfect time to talk about this. Right. Hurricanes could be used to describe Coriolis effect. How so, you say, Nathan? Surely not. Well, yes, if you were in the hurricane. Now, if you were spinning in the hurricane like you spin on a roundabout, and you looked at something on the ground, let's say you could see a car parked up, and you looked at it and go, oh, it looks like it's coming towards me. Oh, I've passed it. Oh, it's not there anymore. Oh, look, it looks like it's coming towards me. That's you turning in the hurricane. Yeah, like a cow in Twister, right? Well, for the cow in Twister, whipping around in the Twister, it sees things seeming to come towards it, and then it's not. And then it seems to come towards it again. But that's you in the hurricane. Likewise, when people talk about Coriolis effect with drain water going swirling in a particular direction, unless you are in the drain, swirling in it like on a roundabout, watching things that from your vantage point as you swirl down a drain seem to move when they're not, then you're not describing Coriolis. hurricanes are only applicable to Coriolis if you're in them. And drain water, swirling one direction or another, is only applicable to Coriolis if you're swirling around in it. So if you're in a whirlpool, for whatever reason you find yourself in a whirlpool, if you're not dead shortly after, and you observe things seeming to come towards you, oh, the bank is coming towards me. Oh, no, the bank's going away. Oh, the bank's coming to... Yeah, that's you seeming to see things move when they're not. That's Coriolis. Now, the assertion that from the ground, an Earth rotation causes this formation of weather patterns has absolutely nothing to do with Coriolis, first and foremost, and is an absurd notion that not attached, unbonded particles are going to be affected by a presuppositional Earth that spins. It's absolutely absurd and definitely isn't Coriolis. Well worth mentioning at the end of this little diatribe between us.
So Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz was definitely seeing Coriolis because she was in the hurricane.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
That's right. You've got to be in or on a non-inertial spinning reference frame to observe Coriolis.
How about Spiniolis?
Yeah, he won't let this go. Globiolis.
Call it globy. That's the worst. That's like flurfer. That's that level of wording.
Yeah, that was intentional. That was exactly
their naming level.
That's exactly where I got it from, Arwin. So when they name stuff like flurspective, right, that's kind of the thing that went through my head when I'm like Globiolis, because that's the kind of thing they do.
That's exactly what I was trying to prevent. Don't go to their level.
Well, I'm taking it a step further. Globiolis is an actual deviation effect caused by the conservation of miles per hour momentum as per your latitude within a begging the question fallacy. So that can be tweaked on.
It's a difficult word to alter anyway. I'm just thinking of the raviolis effect or something.
Yeah, you're just going to have to accept this one. Globiolis is going to be their nonsense from now on.
You're starting to sound like a sore loser here, Owen.
Sore loser? What? It's not my model.
Let it go.
No, I'm not letting it go. There has to be a better
Penny.
word for it.
Owen likes to play baller and he wants his words in it.
Let's take a vote. I say Globiolis stands.
This isn't a democracy. I've already named it.
Well, Chocolate's already posted it.
Hey, Nathan, can I jump in?
Say again? Was that Chris?
Can I jump in here?
Yes,
Yep.
feel free.
So, hey, Brian. So I was listening to the show last night about this exact topic with Acum virus, which, and by the way, it was just a complete demolishing, kind of embarrassing for him. But anyway, I was thinking about it. So I'm going to lay my idea out to you all and you tell me what you think. So I'm going to need to present real quick. Make a window. Oh, it's not letting me tab. Oh, I have Paint open. It's not letting me choose Paint for some reason.
You need a bit of elevator music. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, I'll just do my whole screen.
Okay. Let me know
And
when
then
you've
you
got it,
guys-
when you're happy with it.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes. Get it all ready in.
All right. Great. Okay, so just bear with me while I kind of explain this, and then I'll ask you all the questions. So what we're told is that this brown circle thing is the Earth, the ground, right? It's spherical. And the X marks the spot. So we have a drone in the middle. We are told that as the Earth spins 15 degrees per hour, the drone also spins 15 degrees per hour and maintains, right, its exact spot over the X. And when that occurs, we get this, star trails. Does everyone agree with that on the globe model so far?
No, because the part where you assert that the drone should remain over the X is to fly in the face of assertions that snipers have bullets drifting when they leave the barrel of a gun, or that footballs drift through goalposts because Earth turns underneath them. They actually assert that the Earth would turn underneath the drone. So, no, I wouldn't accept that as globe rhetoric. I'd accept it as trench-level rhetoric that they assert in defence of why it doesn't drift. They just say, well, we wouldn't expect to see it drift, although that is actually incorrect, and their rhetoric said it would.
Okay, fair enough. So, but if the response to that is if we beg the question with them, because that has to be their response, that their response has to be that, yes, the drone is moving with the rotation of the Earth. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't get star trails, correct?
Well, their assertion is that we'd see a Coriolis effect from the ground. Coriolis is it drifting away at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator because it's no longer attached to a non-inertial reference frame. So there's plenty of citations that say Earth has Coriolis effect.
Right. But their response is this drifts at 15 degrees per hour. It maintains its position over X on the Earth. And therefore you get star trails because the drone is, even though the drone looks like it's hovering and staying where it is, the drone is actually moving, but the stars are standing still. That's a fair assessment of their argument, right?
Sort of, because you said if it's drifting at 15 degrees an hour, then it will stay over the X. Well, no. If it's drifting at 15 degrees an hour, that would mean that from the ground it would deviate from the X. That's the 15 degrees an hour drifting from the X. So other than you asserting what they would assert, which is that this is drifting at 15 degrees an hour, it's not moving and not drifting. In other words, they'd hold simultaneously two positions that are mutually exclusive, which is to say, as you did...
No, they don't. The drone drifts at 15 degrees an hour along with the surface of the Earth.
Oh, right. So the Earth drifts with the drone, so they're not drifting apart then?
Well, you talk about drift is not a term...
So they're not drifting apart, according to Rumpus, exactly as I just said they would disclaim. Both positions can't be true. It can't be both drifting apart and drifting with Earth. That's two different contradictory positions. But as demonstrated by Rumpus at perfect timing, yes, he will hold both positions as true, simultaneously, as you described accurately they would do. Chris, do you want to continue?
Sure. And Rumpus might be perfect for this because he has that globe mentality in his head. So what would I need to do to negate this effect with the drone? What could I do to negate this effect if what they say is true?
Why are you interrupting? I'm trying to give you a quick summary there. So
Oh, he was doing the presentation. He wasn't interrupting you, you stupid moron. He was doing a presentation. Was it the fact that you were talking through his entire presentation that made you think he was interrupting you?
Well, you said something and you...
Shut up! You ignorant little man. Yeah? He wasn't interrupting you, but that is your tactic here. Whilst continually interrupting a presentation, yeah, you then come off mute and say, if you could stop interrupting me. It was a presentation. You unbelievable buffoon.
You strawman the globe.
You weren't being interrupted, you complete clown. What you did, in useful nature that you have by nature, was to assert two positions simultaneously. Drone not drifting, drone having 15 degrees an hour drift. Two positions simultaneously can't be held at the same time. Feel free to express your cognitive dissonance by saying that he's interrupting you while he's doing a presentation.
What are the two positions you're claiming we have that are...
You claim that there's 15 degrees an hour turn of the Earth as the Earth turns underneath to give you an observable Coriolis deflection. That's 15 degrees an hour drift observable from the ground. You also simultaneously say that Earth and atmosphere move as one and there is no deflection. The things move together, not drifting. That's two positions simultaneously held.
No, you've got confused.
No, I'm not confused. I can succinctly, calmly summarise your abject doublespeak contradiction really easily. Not confused.
You're just strawmanning. You don't...
No, not strawmanning. It's not an argument that I'm putting forward in lieu of something else so I can burn it. No, it's my accurate summation of your doublespeak contradiction where the drone doesn't drift at 15 degrees an hour, but it simultaneously has Earth turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour for us to observe Coriolis effect.
Understand that the Coriolis...
Yeah, you're just talking through me. End of your time here. Get lost. You're not just going to simultaneously ignore every single word and claim it's a straw man. I'm going to pull apart why you say it's a straw man, and then if you ignore me, you get lost. I'm no longer going to tolerate this nonsense here. Do you have anything to add, Chris?
Yeah, because I haven't gotten to the conclusion.
But you're asking how would you negate the star trails happening?
Correct.
In accordance with, could you send maybe the drone to do 15 degrees an hour east to west?
That's right. If you move the drone at 15 degrees per hour this way, on their model with what Rumpus and the others are explaining, you should, in reality, physically, you should get 0 star trail movement. That's something that we could actually physically do and test.
Yes, that's correct. That's the point of QE originally presenting this. If it's tracking with it, then the star movements wouldn't be moving. Precisely. So how I had a virus over a barrel with this exact same thing yesterday. So which one's which? What's happening? You can't both have the stars moving as a result of you moving underneath it when you've detached a drone, and then they say, well, the drone's moving with Earth. Well, then why have we got star rotation? You can't hold both positions as true. Either we're turning underneath stuff, seeing things seem to drift. Now, they claim that's why we see star rotation. But that would also simultaneously mean that a drone has Earth turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour. Now, they'll come here and say, they're moving together. Well, okay, so what's the cause of the star rotation again? And it's both positions get held. We've got 15 degrees an hour drift as we turn underneath stuff. We don't have 15 degrees an hour drift. They're moving together. Both positions held as true at the same time.
Could I just point out that that's lovely, but even to try that would require at the equator a drone that can go at 1,000 miles an hour.
Precisely. To negate the spin. Go on, John.
What I was going to say is, even if you have something traveling like the stars do over our heads, and you travel at the same speed as them, and they don't have star trails, it's still not proving the Earth is spinning.
Exactly. You'd have no difference between that and a stationary Earth. So what's proving we spin? Oh, it's supposed to be that things drift away at 15 degrees an hour. You're now justifying why it doesn't and telling us how it, when you beg the question, moves with an Earth that spins, in violation of the first law of thermodynamics, I might add. Well, when they describe that, they don't have anything to prove it's spinning anymore, because there'd be no difference between that and a stationary plane. So they're just arguing against the fact that they should have drift. They don't have drift, so they give you a scenario that'd have no difference between that and a stationary Earth, when they beg the question that Earth is moving with the atmosphere. Well, they're not moving apart then, so no drift. And round we go. And all they hope to achieve, or hope, when I say hope, I mean someone like Rumpus hopes to achieve, is abject confusion in the audience. And here we are breaking a little bit of new ground with Brian, giving clarity to how they've taken angular speed, saying it's being retained, and then giving it us in miles per hour rather than 15 degrees. It's supposed to be 15 degrees of drift anywhere, but yet we get told about speed changes and projectiles. Hold on, Coriolis is observed from the ground as we turn underneath stuff. Of course, if we saw that, we'd have things drifting because Earth was turning underneath them. It doesn't happen, so they have to justify why it doesn't happen with this convoluted mess of nonsense. And so it will go on and on and on until we bring clarity here, and then they have to give us both positions simultaneously. Anyway, I'll say with that, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
out the whole thing about what he's saying is that can I present my screen a second, Nathan, just to show something?
Yeah, sure.
That's okay. Thank you. This was something I talked about before. It's only a silly thing, but it's only something silly, but it doesn't matter. But it's an interesting thing, which is, sorry, here we are. A reverse clock. It doesn't go east to west. It goes west to east. So technically, if you were to lay it down correctly, if you had a big enough one or a correct one, you were to lay it down correctly with the 12 towards north. Technically, if you could do it right, then it shouldn't. The hands, in accordance with their model, the hands of the clock shouldn't move. So because or the watch hand, the big hand or the hour hand shouldn't move because that should be moving with the rotation of the supposed globe. It's just something stupid, but it'd be interesting if you could do it. It's only nonsense, but it's along the same lines as what Chris is talking about. Kind of like what I was saying before about the EQ mount telescope. I asked Wolfie if he could send his EQ mount telescope going 15 degrees an hour east to west as opposed to west to east. Or sorry, west to east. West to east, I meant. And he said he could do it possibly, and then he didn't give me any more responses because he knew what that would mean.
Cool. Thanks.
I gotta ask a question here. So, if again, this is all the globe nonsense here. So, Earth is not spinning. So, if it's west to east at a 15 degree, the way they say, and you reverse it to the other, and they say the stars are so far away, so in actuality they're moving, but because of the distances, it looks like they're stationary. So star trails are caused from their vernacular from the Earth spinning west to east. And if you were to reverse the spin of this presupposed Earth, which is actually not spinning, but if you were, wouldn't it still give you their star trails the way they say anyway? Because it's still spinning.
Yeah. Well, that's the fundamental premise of the model, right? So yeah.
Right. So I kind of didn't get what he was saying when he said if you reverse it, then it would just reverse their fundamental presupposition, which isn't true anyway.
No, you wouldn't. According to their model, the stars wouldn't rotate then.
No, they're saying the Earth is rotating.
Yeah, but according to their model, if you're sending a drone 15 degrees an hour in the opposite direction to the spin of the supposed globe, then the star should stay stationary.
I'm talking about the Earth rotating that way, which the drone depicts.
Yeah, and he's saying if you fly the drone in opposition to the claimed spin of the Earth, which would be possible, I'm sure you could have a drone fast enough if you got far enough north on their presupposition of a curved surface that has a different speed in miles per hour rather than angular. Enough disclaimers. Carry on, Brian.
Well, again, I'm thinking. Let me say this. So, if the stars seem to be giving us star trails, that's currently assigned to Earth spinning in the current direction of west to east. Correct?
Yeah, we covered this a second ago. Yeah.
Okay, so then it's not about the stars; it's about the Earth spinning. So now, if the drone going the other direction is depicting the Earth spinning in another direction, it's still about the Earth spinning. So I don't get it.
It's a claim that you can negate it and stop the stars. This is all... I don't think this is verifiable. Like you say, you'd have to get a pretty quick drone. But, I don't know, it's just... You have to fly around an imaginary line that you drew around an imaginary sphere that you've reified and show that it doesn't happen. But, you know, in theory, if you want to call it that, colloquial theory, it kind of pans out, right? Just a folly. You said that at the beginning. It's just an interesting talking point. But that's what they're assuming. But in reality, we don't have any of the effects observed. The drone's not drifting away 1,000 miles on the equator for it to be able to negate this, not that you do it on the equator, by flying 1,000 miles an hour in the opposite direction. But either way,
Well,
we don't have
Well,
the effect.
I could see what Brian's saying if their claim was the stars were moving and you went the other way. But they're saying the Earth is moving. So how would the Earth spinning in the reverse way? It would just show you a reverse star trail.
No, it wouldn't. It would be what I said is that in accordance with their claim, if you send a drone 15 degrees an hour the opposite direction to the spin of their claimed globe, then that should give us a stationary stars. Because we're told the stars are only rotating because are only appearing to rotate because we're actually rotating. This is what we were always told.
Okay, so I think I see. I'm thinking he's depicting the drone in an imaginary way as acting as the Earth going the other way. You're saying the Earth is still going west to east in their pseudo model, and the drone is going opposite of the Earth, and that's where the stars would stay stationary.
Yeah, in accordance with their model, and that wouldn't happen in reality.
So in the argument, the Earth is still spinning west to east in this argument.
Well, you have to beg the question to talk about this. That's the problem.
No, I got you. I got you. I thought he was saying that if you reverse the spin of the Earth, and he used the drone to do that, but all the time the drone's going one way and the Earth is going the other way. And what he was trying to say.
Yeah, but what Chris was pointing out is that it should, in accordance with their model, negate the star rotation.
I got it. Okay.
What you could do with the drone is if you could send it east to west as opposed to west, right? If you could send it 15 degrees an hour east to west, you wouldn't have to send it far, or only maybe a mile or less, and then calculate the distance it went. Then you could determine, right? Now we know the answer to this, but for the ballers, if you send it, let's say half a mile or whatever, a couple of 100 meters east to west, at the exact speed, at that exact supposed rotational speed, at that exact supposed latitude. What should happen if you send just 15 degrees an hour east to west at that particular point? What should happen if we were on a globe, a rotating globe, is that it should move 30 degrees because it should be moving. There should be a difference of 30 degrees. It should be double. So if you send it 200 meters, it should have gone maybe not 400 meters, but do you understand what I'm saying? It's like it should be moving opposite direction to where it started because it's not moving with the supposed rotation of the globe anymore. So if you could calculate the distance that it should go in accordance with the globe model, then calculate the distance it actually went.
Well, I think the strongest position we have is that it's from the non-inertial reference frame, and that's the Earth's supposedly spinning for them, and there's no Earth-based Coriolis. So what the stars are doing is what the stars are doing, and they're hijacking that and saying Earth is spinning. But if Earth was spinning to cause the star trails, then Earth is spinning underneath roads, airplanes, bullets, gliders, and everything else, and we don't see that. So that's not the answer.
No, I'm just saying, just kind of going off of what Chris was saying, it's just that technically, if the globe is going west to east 15 degrees an hour, and you set a drone east to west going 15 degrees an hour, then technically the distance the drone travels should be double. So if you send it 200 meters, it should have traveled 400.
Right.
What I mean? Because, if you have it set up for that exact latitude to move 15 degrees an hour, it should travel 400 because it's moving the opposite direction from the supposed rotation.
Well, it's like the Charlotte to LA. The Earth's coming at you.
Exactly. There should be drift, and drift would mean that Earth's turning underneath stuff in the air. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like going backwards on a escalator.
Sorry?
Saying if you walk backwards on an escalator, you stay in the same relative position.
If you're going in the opposite exit.
If you've got a balcony above an escalator and you draw a little line on it and you're walking backwards, you can stay in line with that little piece and in the middle of the escalator all day if you keep walking backwards at the same pace. So in relative position, you're saying that you're keeping up with it, making everything seem to stand still, when in fact you're just negating the movement underneath, with the drone moving in the opposite direction. I think we're all on the same page, and we've talked this to death now. It was only it started off as a folly, right, Brian?
Yeah. Anthony.
Hi, Anthony.
Good evening. How are we all?
Very well. How are you?
Just enjoying the. I was catching up on double speak because it obviously it takes half. Coriolis nonsense is still nonsense, and the fight. They need the conservation of momentum to do two tasks, and that's really our argument that debunks it in my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's top 3. We assert the Coriolis effect would be observable. The fact that they assert that it is observable and it isn't is neither here nor there. The fact that they defend it as not being required, even though they assert we have 15 degrees now, we wouldn't expect to see it, is again irrelevant. Our argument is, if we've got Coriolis, Earth's turning underneath stuff. It is that simple. Well, it's not, so we don't. Earth isn't turning.
Yeah, if the Earth's turning, it's got to be faster planes and slower planes. If the Earth's not turning, then there's no Coriolis. Or they've got to concede. It's that simple.
No, it's actually even worse, actually, for them. It's not whether we have Coriolis, because we already know that we don't, and it's admitted by mainstream science that we don't see this apparent deviation. It's whether we have Globiolis or not.
Did you listen to that, Anthony? The show when we were explaining what Globiolis is, their assertion that Coriolis is actually the retention of angular momentum when turned into miles per hour.
Yeah, I was listening to that. Globiolis is a great term. I think that if they understand what Globiolis is and can recite that back to you, then that's them debunking themselves. So that's really all you got to ask them. What's Globiolis?
Exactly. So rather than us having two different definitions or a, I've forgotten what the term is, it's a fallacy, but using one word to have two different meanings. Anyway, I'll remember in a minute. The point is that
the law of non-contradiction.
No, it's I forgot what it's called.
Identity.
It doesn't matter. The point is that when they say Coriolis, they're then going to describe something that isn't Coriolis. So rather than having it be confusing to the audience where they're describing, well, Coriolis effect is the projectile doing blah, blah, blah. No, it isn't. It's your observation of it not doing something that's Coriolis. Rather than having to explain that with both sides using the word Coriolis, when they start talking about observations from a projectile, we'll just say, no, that's Globiolis. Coriolis is observed from the ground. So your Globiolis says that the plane will track with it and move sideways, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's Globiolis, because Coriolis isn't that.
What they've got to do, though, is they've got to show that the conservation of angular momentum is not equal throughout the whole of a rotating body.
Well, that's a nonsense statement.
It's an impossibility.
They're never going to do that. It's almost like one of the housekeeping questions there, Brian, because how are they going to do that when it's 15 degrees an hour, always, everywhere?
Yeah. That's the point. That's the main point of the presentation I did earlier. Is mostly that. It's that they can never prove that.
Any comments from Discord? Shed any light on...
guys?
Hello. Has this shed any light on Coriolis versus Globiolis?
I actually have to add something about rotation, but it's not quite Coriolis.
Feel free.
Okay. Nathan, are you aware of the deviation of falling bodies due to the rotation of the Earth? Have you heard of that?
Are you claiming it?
I'm not claiming it. I can give you experiments and proof.
Before you do, what you're saying is that if you drop a body from a height, Earth will turn underneath the body to cause deviation.
How did you establish it was the Earth turning?
In general, the thing is that there's no latitude on Earth where an object can go in a straight line and come back to the same place as it started, except for the 0 degree latitude, which is the equator. Only there an object can go in a straight line.
So
on every other point, it will have a small deviation towards the south or east.
Yeah, I understand. So you're saying that Earth will turn. You're saying that Earth will turn underneath objects, right?
The Earth will turn. If you want to say it like this, you can.
That's how how I want to say it. I'm clarifying your claim. are you saying that things that are dropped won't move in a straight line towards an X that's directly beneath them? Because, according to you, Earth turns underneath them. Correct?
Actually, this object still has the one vector, and because of the Earth rotating, like I said before, there's no straight line except for the equator, where you can go and come back to the same point. You always have to go either a bit north or south to correct that circle, and that's why the object keeps moving on its path, and you moves away from its original path, like falling down.
Because Earth's moving underneath it, right?
Yeah, because the Earth is
Like so Earth is claimed to be moving underneath a ball that you drop from a height. So therefore, if I launch a drone off the ground, Earth will turn underneath it, right?
Nope.
What do you mean, no? You've just said if I drop a ball, Earth will turn underneath it, and then you've given me a long explanation about how Earth will turn underneath it without actually saying it. I've got clarity that you're saying Earth turns underneath stuff that's not attached, like a ball dropped. Then I say, what about a drone that's not attached? And you say no.
The thing with drones is that you can't measure it so good.
Oh, I see. So with a drone that's in the air for a substantial period of time, Earth wouldn't be measurable turning underneath it. Wouldn't it be a much bigger value if it's in the air for a longer time? Take your time.
I need to think about this.
Yeah, you do, don't you? Because if a drone goes up and stays in the air for a long time, and according to you, drop a ball and it curves because Earth turns underneath it, then Earth's going to turn under the drone now, isn't it?
But the problem with the...
What do you mean, but the drone? Earth would be turning under the drone also, then, wouldn't it? Yes, Nathan, is what you need to say. You need to say yes. If Earth turns under a ball I drop, according to you, then Earth turns under a drone. It just doesn't, does it?
Actually,
can I get a bit
if you would drop the drone, it would also have that deviation.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying is a drone with its mere motors can negate the turn of the Earth underneath it until the motors fail. Yes, nonsense, you stupid idiot.
No.
Yeah, that's implying that a drone can keep up with 1,000 miles an hour of Earth turn underneath it until its motors fail, then it'll start to drift when it falls.
No, it still has...
Yeah, that's what it'd have to do. It'd have to keep up with 1,000 miles an hour turn of the Earth on the equator, only to start drifting when its motors fail, which implies that the motors are keeping up with 1,000 miles an hour.
No, it's moving already 1,000 miles per hour.
Oh, it's moving already? So if the ball's doing that then,
Of
when
course.
you drop it, the ball's moving already and it's not drifting, it's moving in a straight path.
But I said...
I mean, yeah, you've told us how it doesn't move in a straight path. Why are you saying yeah? You've just told us very specifically how it doesn't move in a straight path. Now you're saying it retains velocity so it would move in a straight path.
Look, the thing is with the ball, if you let it go, it still has the one vector it had at that moment you let it go. And it's in a straight line. And because it's impossible to have a straight line...
What, if Earth's turning underneath
which
it?
ends up...
You've said this. I don't need it another time.
Except for the
I don't need it repeating. Yeah. According to you, it can't have a straight line because Earth's turning underneath the ball when it's dropped. So Earth's turning underneath it. Well, Earth would turn underneath stuff that's not attached then. That would be including, but not limited to, a drone, a football, a sniper's bullet, a hot air balloon, an aeroplane, any of the things that aren't attached anymore would also, like your ball, have Earth turning underneath them. But when I ask you, is Earth turning under a drone, you give me an excuse for why it isn't, after just justifying why a ball has exactly that effect.
No, I didn't say it isn't.
So why are you talking through me? I'm summarising your double-speak contradiction, where Earth turns under a ball, and then Earth doesn't turn under a drone. That's a contradiction.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I said it. I summarised your double-speak contradiction, mate. You just took your opportunity to talk through me during summary, so you didn't listen. Yeah, I know it's cognitively painful to accept that you're describing Earth turning under a ball to negate a straight path according to you without any demonstrations, but according to you, balls don't ever fall straight. So if I drop a bowling ball and a feather in a vacuum chamber, according to you, it'll hit the sides. Yeah, I've got plenty of examples that don't seem to show that though, my friend. Nevertheless, despite your nonsense about balls never being capable of being dropped straight because according to you, Earth turns underneath them, Earth doesn't turn under drones. So that's a contradiction, my friend.
Nathan, that's exactly why I said before, I'm not sure if the Earth turns below them. I wouldn't say it like that.
Oh, well, why would you say it about the ball then? Why would you say it about the ball then? It's not an either-or scenario. Either Earth turns underneath stuff not attached or it doesn't. It's not either-or. It's not circumstantial. Well, maybe it'll turn underneath. It either turns underneath or it doesn't.
Nathan, I would say it like the ball is moving away from the linear or circular path of the object or the person who let it go.
Yeah, because Earth turning underneath it, according to you.
No.
Yeah! Do you mean, yeah, moving away from its straight path because it's claimed by you Earth turns underneath it. Yes, Nathan! Pat, got your tongue? Not sigh. Yes, Nathan. I claim it moves from its straight path because Earth, I am claiming, is turning underneath it until I point out that a drone hasn't got Earth turning underneath it and then suddenly it's selective, is it? No, mate, just a contradiction. Your silence is absolutely demonstrative of your cognitive dissonance.
Nathan, look, the thing, I want to continue with my ball. We can discuss about the drone later.
Oh, I see. So we'll stick with the one where you assert that the ball's got Earth turning underneath, will we? And ignore the fact that Earth doesn't turn under the drone. We'll just come back to that later after you assert multiple times, having already said it twice, that Earth turns under a ball.
Okay, Nathan, one question.
Earth turning under a ball we're going to talk about, but we're not going to talk about Earth turning under a drone, right? That's what you want.
No, Nathan.
No, that's what you've just asked for. We'll focus on Earth turning under the ball, and we'll ignore Earth not turning under a drone, because that would leave me in cognitive pain. That's what you've essentially just said.
No, the thing with the drone is the drone has motors and everything, which keeps it up.
Oh, I see. We're back to this shit, where the drone is keeping up with 1,000 miles an hour. How powerful do you think the drone's motors are?
No, the drone is already moving 1,000 miles an hour.
Oh, I see. So we've not got any drift then. So the ball's already moving at 1,000 miles an hour then. So the ball's not drifting anymore then.
We are also moving it.
So the ball's already moving at 1,000 miles an hour then. So the ball's not going to deviate from straight then.
Everything is moving at 1,000 miles per hour.
So the ball's already moving 1,000 miles an hour, then it is going to move straight because it's already moving at the velocity of the moving platform beneath it.
These 1,000 miles per hour.
So the ball is already moving 1,000 miles an hour. You seem to be not recognising that your current statement stands in violation of your ball deviating because Earth's moving underneath it. Now we've got the ball retaining 1,000 miles an hour, right?
Of course, because it has...
Oh, so it's not deviating then. So it stands in complete contradiction of your assertion that Earth would turn underneath it then. If it's retaining 1,000 miles an hour, it's not going to have Earth turning underneath it, you clown. It's a contradiction.
No, Nathan, look, the point is, if you let the ball go, it has a linear path, while you still have that circular path around the Earth. That's why the ball will deviate.
Oh, so the ball's got Earth turning underneath it then, so it's not retaining 1,000 miles an hour then. So that's in complete contradiction to what you said 2 seconds ago.
You're theoretically turning away from the...
Yeah, you've just said everything's got 1,000 miles an hour turning, and my drone apparently retains that 1,000 miles an hour. I ask if the ball retains it, you say what? No? Sorry for me, that's right, yeah. It's a contradiction, my friend. You can't have Earth retaining 1,000 miles an hour velocity in the drone and not retaining it in the ball. But that wrecks your example where the ball isn't retaining it, it's drifting because Earth's moving underneath it. They're in complete contradiction, my friend.
Nathan, this experiment is about...
Not an experiment, how dare you? This isn't an experiment, shut up. What an absolute joke.
So, Nathan, look. If I can do predictions about this deviation, I can calculate how much it should be if the Earth is rotating and is spinning below it.
Well, then if Earth's spinning below it, it's spinning below a drone.
Yeah,
What do you mean, yeah? So Earth's spinning beneath drones, then? They whiz away at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator? No, they don't! Earth isn't spinning beneath drones!
Nathan, let me finish.
He's contradicting himself worse than that, Nathan.
Go on, Brian.
If you would like. Yeah. Because, excuse me, are you claiming the conservation of angular momentum at any point in your description?
He's claiming it for the ball, and then not claiming it for the ball. So he's saying, it will deviate because Earth turns underneath. And then when I say, does Earth turn under a drone? No, it retains 1,000 miles an hour. So does the ball retain 1,000 miles an hour?
Thing about the drone, it's not a falling object. I'm talking...
Oh, I see. So it's motors. Again, back to this shit third time in a row. So the drone's motors can keep up with 1,000 miles an hour. Next answer off your breath. It's already got it, right?
Angular momentum, please. What?
Yeah, it's already got the angular momentum. It's already got it. Yeah, you're just not answering me. You're just not answering me. So it's already got the angular momentum. Just ignoring me and talking through me before my conclusion comes, so you can assert the same crap. So you're saying the drone's already got 1,000 miles an hour.
Everything is moving 1,000 miles per hour. Whatever.
So the ball is also doing that then, yeah? Everything.
Yeah, it is.
So then it won't drift then. So Earth won't turn underneath it then because it's already got 1,000 miles an hour. It's retaining it. So it won't drift.
Nathan, if you let the ball...
Oh, ignore me completely, why not? After a short pause. So according to you, everything's already retaining 1,000 miles an hour, so your ball example doesn't drift anymore.
Of course it drifts, because it has a linear vector. While
oh, and so does a drone. A drone's got a linear vector.
And I don't know...
Yeah, so's a drone.
If it will
so's a drone.
With...
Ignore me completely. Just ignore me indefinitely. So's a drone.
Sorry, talk.
So's a drone.
No, the stone is not a drone. The drone can keep itself up in the air while the stone...
Oh, so what about when it flies upwards? So if it flies upwards, the opposite direction to the ball, Earth will turn underneath it then, right?
The drone thing is a complete different thing.
Oh, why? Because it doesn't have Earth moving underneath it. So I reverse your example and have the drone flying up to the top of a building, but Earth isn't turning underneath it, even though it's now got a vector.
Of course it is.
Oh, Earth is turning under drones. So if I launch a drone in the air, according to this clown, Earth will turn underneath it 1,000 miles an hour on the equator if I launch it upward.
The thing about the drone is, like I said multiple times, I'm not sure if it asserts any forces or any direction.
No, you are sure. You've told us it retains 1,000 miles an hour.
That's why you...
Sorry, why are you telling me you're not sure when you've told me it's retaining 1,000 miles an hour? You've told us everything retains 1,000 miles an hour, you clown. Now you're saying you're not sure?
Nathan, look, everything moves at 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I heard! So why are you saying that you're not sure when it comes to the drone, then?
That's
because
the drone... It's not moving at 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, we're not moving at 1,000 miles an hour. If we did, his ball example would be true and things would drift, because Earth would be turning underneath them. Now, he's asserted Earth turns underneath this ball if you drop it. It can't not drift, Earth's turning underneath it. What about a drone? Oh, well, let's not focus on that.
Drone. Yeah, please. The drone has forces exerted on it. It exerts forces to keep itself up. It has motors and everything. And
yeah, you've said that 4 times. So therefore, by implication, you're saying it can negate 1,000 miles an hour turn of the Earth underneath it because it's got motors. Therefore, drone motors automatically compensate for Earth turning under them at 1,000 miles an hour, according to that statement.
No, the thing is, it's not turning 100. It is moving at 1,000 miles per hour. Or And
Like
the
the
stone is
ball?
also moving 1,000 miles per hour.
I see.
That
So the ball is
deviation-
doing that too then. So therefore, back to the contradiction where the ball is also doing that too then. Because everything's doing it, right?
Yeah, but...
So the ball doesn't drift then? Because it's automatically got the 1,000 miles an hour still with it then? So it won't deviate because Earth turns underneath it then, you clown. How many times are you going to assert this same contradiction?
It's not a contradiction because...
Oh, right. So Earth does turn underneath the ball, but Earth also doesn't turn under it because it retains 1,000 miles an hour velocity like everything. That's a complete contradiction, you idiot.
Nathan, I'm talking about falling object. You can take an object which is standing still while I'm talking about falling object.
Oh, right. So a drone, you're saying if I drop it off the building, Earth will turn underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sigh for me. Do you not realise how big a contradiction this is? You can't have it both ways. Earth can't simultaneously turn underneath stuff to have it deviate like your ball, and not turn underneath stuff because everything retains the velocity. Those are mutually exclusive positions, my friend.
My problem about the drone is that it exerts forces.
Yeah, it keeps saying it's the 5th time. That would mean the bloody drone engines can overcome 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. That's the 5th time.
Don't care about these
Nathan, can we
1,000
try
miles
it
per
a
hour.
different way? Can we try it a different way, Nathan?
Go on.
Clearly not going to concede, so let's try it from a different perspective. You know the experiments that you claimed about the North Pole test that people in things, yeah?
North Pole test? What do you mean exactly?
You made a claim that there were experiments that dropped things at certain parts of the world, and the only place that they didn't record an apparent drift would be at the North Pole, and you said that there were experiments that were demonstrating this.
No,
correct?
Equator. That's the only straight line. Of course, you can go like to the North and South Pole on that point, but it wouldn't be a straight line there.
Great. So these experiments were the scientific experiments.
And so there would be no deviation at all.
Were these scientific experiments?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So I posted something in chat in live stream.
So how did you?
I wasn't even inviting you to waffle on indefinitely. You just asked for a yes. Yes, scientific according to you. Thank you. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
Not according to me.
Don't obfuscate
According
and
to
answer the
science.
question. I
Thank
asked.
you. According to science, they're science. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior. Second attempt.
Right, so I've only got one question, and just answer the question I ask and don't deviate. How did you prove that the cause of the effect that you believed that you were observing was actually caused by Earth turn?
Because in the calculations of to get my results, I used the rotation of the Earth, the latitude.
But you correlated, right? But you didn't prove cause. I asked you, how did you prove, not calculate, prove. How did you prove that the cause was Earth turn?
Because if the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles per hour at the latitude of 45 degrees north, then the deviation has to be 1/24th of an inch. And then I need to prove it.
But you're affirming the consequent with a correlative observation. You're not proving the cause of the effect. That's not science. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's an affirming the
This
consequent
is what's
form of
known as
logical
an incorrect
fallacy.
modus ponens.
Yeah, that's affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy.
Method?
You've affirmed the consequent. Sleeping Warrior is right.
Wait, I'm going to get my scientific method here.
Is
One second.
if A then
So we
B,
follow it.
A therefore B.
What you've done,
But why-
instead of...
what-
Hold on,
what-
Brian.
what this guy is saying is
Brian, hello?
Sorry.
You've affirmed the consequent. You've said if Earth a sphere, then you've said deviation. You said deviation, therefore Earth a sphere. That's affirming the consequent. That's not a scientific hypothesis by any stretch.
Okay, let's follow the scientific method. Ask a question. If the Earth is rotating, would falling body...
That's not asking a question, that's begging the question. Sorry, you don't know the difference between
That's
asking
my
a question. My friend, shut up. That's begging the question, assuming your outcome. So you're assuming if Earth's a sphere with that statement.
Yeah, okay, why are falling objects...
Why are you asking me? You just
No.
begged the question. Who's interrupting me constantly? Bloody hellfire. You've just begged the
I
question.
am.
Do you not understand? Oh my god, whoever's doing that, please
I'm
can you
asking
stop?
a question. I'm asking a question.
No, you're begging the question.
No. Why
what's
are
begging the-
objects not falling directly
QE, well,
at
hold
the
on a
point
second.
underneath
QE, hold on.
something at certain
My friend,
latitudes.
hold on. I'm trying to stop someone else interrupting. Go ahead, QE.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, he said he went through the scientific method, right? He said the first step was ask a question. That's not the first step of the scientific method.
Can you post your one in chat? That's the only one.
My one. It's
Yeah, if you say mine is
observe a
the wrong
natural
one.
phenomena. It's not science buddies. You got that from science buddies, didn't you? Ask a question. That's not the first step of the scientific method, son. I can ask a question.
There are multiple.
Are
It doesn't matter.
baltards retarded? Now, is that a scientific? I just asked a question. Does that fit in the scientific method?
If you can prove it somehow. If you
Am I
follow
going to
the
have?
scientific method, and you can
Okay.
prove it.
I ask a question. Am I going to have roast chicken for tea? Is that explorable by science?
It's not predictable because we can't. You can do background research, how often you do that and stuff. But I don't know if you can find a pattern.
No,
it will be
patterns
maybe
are maths.
possible.
That's
If
maths.
not, it's not predictable.
That's maths. Phenomena.
Did I
Natural.
clear the word pattern?
Just tell him. So science deals.
If you can follow the scientific method.
Yeah, we're telling you what the scientific method is. It's to establish the cause of naturally occurring phenomena by way of systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis. That's the scientific method.
Okay, perfect. My scientific phenomena is objects not falling, deviating.
Is that a naturally occurring phenomenon?
The object is not falling
My
on
friend,
point. If
okay,
you take, every influence output.
okay. You need to pause. Is that a naturally occurring phenomena according to you? Objects deviating from
Yes,
straight.
of course.
So we're going to be establishing the cause of objects deviating from straight. That's your dependent variable. Well, that's pretty good because we've got half a hypothesis already. So what's your independent variable? Cause of objects deviating from straight when they drop.
The rotation of the Earth.
Excellent. So you're saying your hypothesis would be if rotation of Earth, then objects deviate from straight. What's the null hypothesis?
Wait, the hypothesis was the null hypothesis. So if there's no deviation of an object, then the Earth is not rotating.
No, you're getting it the wrong way around. You're putting
Or
the
what do you
DV
mean?
first, my friend. No. So the null hypothesis is the antithesis of your alternative hypothesis. So if your alternative hypothesis is if Earth rotation, then deviation of an object dropping from straight line, then your null is if Earth rotation, object not deviating from a straight line. So now all we need to do is actualize this hypothesis, right? Do you know how to actualize a hypothesis?
Test with an experiment, confirm.
Yeah, what is that though? What do you do?
Okay, first of all, you predict. You make predictions.
We've done that.
What
That's
would
the
happen on a globe.
we've done that. We've done that. We've got the hypothesis. Our hypothesis is our prediction. It's a scientific prediction.
No, you need to make calculations. Exact.
No, we
precise
don't.
calculations. Like for
That's
example,
maths.
on the latitude.
Shut up. Stop talking. No, that's wrong. That's maths.
Okay.
No. To actualize a hypothesis, my friend, you need to shut up and listen because you're clearly ignorant of this. And I'm telling you, not asking you to listen again. So, to actualize a hypothesis, that would be perform an experiment. You vary your presumed cause and see if it causes the effect. Now, the effect, according to you, is the natural phenomena of objects deviating from straight when dropped. And your cause is Earth turn. So, how are we going to vary and manipulate our presumed cause of this effect?
We're going to change our latitude on the Earth because the speed of the rotation will change with that.
Sorry,
So we
sorry, my
manipulate
friend,
the rotation.
my friend, stop. Your presumed cause is what we're going to vary. That's how you vary it. You vary it. And your presumed cause is Earth turn. How do we vary Earth turn?
The independent variable has to have an effect on the dependent variable.
Yes, that's fascinating. I detailed that to you only 2 minutes ago. That's correct. The independent variable in an experiment has to be varied. Your independent variable's Earth turn. Now, how are you going to vary it, clown? I'll start insulting you because you don't recognise your stupidity at this stage.
I change it with my latitude because if I want...
Sorry, you're going to vary Earth turn by moving yourself. That's varying Earth turn, is it? Yeah, your silence is a demonstration of your abject stupidity. You think you can vary Earth turn? Something you're assuming?
I don't need to change the rotation.
Oh, you don't need to vary a variable? How scientifically illiterate are you? You don't think an independent variable needs varying?
Nathan, I think he's one of these guys that thinks he can observe it happening in nature and then correlate it and claim science.
Also, the independent...
Independent what now?
My independent variable can also be the latitude on Earth. It can be a lot of things.
Sorry, your
Because
independent
as long as it
variable's
has an
Earth turn.
effect on
Sorry,
the
your
dependent
independent variable. What do you think independent means? Do you think independent means can also be? Is that what independent means, idiot?
No, as...
So can't also be, because it's independent. And independent means stand alone by itself. Alone. And your alone by itself variable that we're going to be varying is Earth turn, not latitude. A concept, by the way.
It can be also latitude.
Can be also. Independent means can be also, does it? Should we do this 5 more times, idiot? What's independent mean, idiot?
But
what does it? Stop interrupting me. G plus, hello. G plus. Hello, idiot. What does independent mean? Does it mean can also be? Yeah, that's that sigh again, isn't it, clown show? So no, independent does not mean can also be, idiot. You feel stupid? Do you not know what independent means? Hello, it doesn't mean can also be, idiot. Are you going to acknowledge this, you stupid idiot? Are we going to do this all day, 5 more times? Does it also mean can be latitude, a concept? Or does independent mean independent, idiot? Don't sigh! You stupid globe-believing idiot. You're having your ass handed to you by a flat earther. You just need to say no. I'm stupid when I say can also be when simultaneously claiming independence. You're a moron. No, independent does not mean can also be. Your independent variable is Earth turning. Now, how are you going to manipulate that, you utter idiot?
Be the latitude. I can manipulate the latitude. You can't...
And is that Earth turn, or is that something else other than your independent variable, you utter idiot?
But my independent...
Sorry, have we established what independent means yet? Or are you just back to, I'm going to assert it's something that's also, when it's supposed to be independent? Is it back to this nonsense? Yeah? What's independent mean? Define independent right now, before you tell me what it can also be, before interrupting me, of course. What's independent mean? What does independent mean, globe-believing moron?
Do you want to explain what independent means or what?
It means on its own, alone, not can also be.
But I can have multiple things.
Oh, so independent means multiple, does it?
That's correlation, not causation.
Sorry, does independent mean multiple? That's sigh for me. Does independent mean multiple, you thicko?
But I can have multiple...
Don't tell me what you can have. Tell me what independent means. Does it mean multiple things? Sorry, does independent mean multiples?
You can have multiple things.
Don't tell me what you can have. Does independent, thick idiot, globe-believing moron, does independent mean multiple things? Or does it mean independent on its own, alone?
That one thing is independent, but you can have...
Oh, so that one thing that you've asserted, that would be Earth turning, is going to be our independent, not but also this other thing, variable. Now we're back to it being independent on its own, alone. So how are you going to vary your stupid nonsense, non-scientific claim that Earth curve causes the non-phenomena of things deviating when you drop them? How are you going to vary your presupposition of Earth turn? Now it's our independent variable, not but also,
I'm gonna
before you do that again...
speed of the Earth turn, not in degrees per hour.
How are you going to vary it?
I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change it, but not in degrees per hour. Listen to you.
Sorry, how are you going to vary your independent variable?
Change these.
When are we going to get to the stage where this complete idiot accepts that he can't vary this? He's going to try and change it to something else. He's failed. Now I'm going to ask you repeatedly, how are you going to vary this stupid nonsense that you claim is an independent variable? How are you going to vary it?
Look, Huey. With changing the speed of the Earth's rotation.
Oh, you think you can change the speed of Earth's rotation? What are you, Superman?
Of course I can.
Are you Superman? You're going to spin around it and change its speed? The question on the table for the globe-believing idiot is, are you Superman?
God damn it, man. You can't argue with that.
What, that you can change Earth's speed? I'm asking if you're Superman, you stupid moron. You think you can change Earth's assumed rotational speed like Superman did in the movies?
QE, you're arguing...
Why are you talking to QE? I am a flat earther. My name is Nathan Oakley, and I'm explaining to this complete clown that his independent variable of an assumption that Earth turns is in no way variable. He has just told me that he can vary the speed of his assumed turning Earth. And I'm asking, is he Superman? Why aren't I getting an answer?
No, but I can change my latitude.
So you can't change your variable of independent variable nature, making it science then? You can change your latitude, but we've already established that's not the variable you said was the independent variable. So you can't vary.
But I'm changing...
Why are you talking? Why are you talking while you're getting your bum smacked? Sit down, be a good dog, and listen to how you're wrong. Your independent variable's Earth turn, and you can't vary it. You're now varying something that isn't your independent variable. Do you understand?
Good, QE. We start again. And
Stop talking to QE. My name is Nathan Oakley. I've just explained this to you. I'm a flat earther taking your argument to pieces based on your contradiction that Earth turns underneath stuff you drop, and Earth doesn't turn underneath a drone even though it's also not attached. Now, we're at that stage where you have to understand and comprehend your own cognition and its failures.
But you have also to understand that I have a valid claim. I can take as my independent variable everything which has an effect on the dependent one.
Sorry, now the independent variable is everything, is it? Sorry, who's that? Go ahead, whoever that was.
If you do that, that makes it correlative, not causative. And we don't deal with correlations in science. We deal with causes.
This whole thing is a disaster from the start because he's claiming that his globe model will rotate at different speeds because of latitudes. He's also claiming the conservation.
But the thing is,
also thinks he's claiming the conservation of angular momentum. Let me ask you one question: Is the conservation of angular momentum momentum measured in miles per hour?
The conservation of momentum.
Which one?
That's actually. God damn it! That's a question. Oh my god! Fucking hell.
Conservation of angular momentum. He asked you a question. What are the units of measure for angular momentum? You're done. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what science is. You don't know what a hypothesis is. Your science acumen is below 5th grade. You're begging the question because you're trying to change your independent variable. Excuse me.
I usually enjoy the dressing. He was dumb when he said hello.
Excuse me. You're trying to change your independent variable or your hypothesis to latitude, right? You're begging the question because your independent variable is the Earth rotating. And you don't know what angular momentum is.
My independent variable has... As long as my independent variable has an effect on the dependent variable, I can use it.
Yes, we already know that. Why are you going 25 steps behind? Nathan already explained that to you.
Why are you telling me I can't use it then? What is this logic?
You have to make a new hypothesis, sir. Your independent variable initially was the Earth rotating. So now you have to construct a new hypothesis. What's your new hypothesis? Causing the effect.
Latitude causes deviation of item dropped from straight if he changes it to latitude.
Right.
So latitude.
You following what I'm saying?
So now we have independent variable latitude causes items to move from straight. This makes no sense at all, does it?
Nope. It's batshit insane, sir. And you're not proving your case.
No, the thing is, as independent variable, I can choose everything.
Real.
My hypothesis...
Number one.
Of course. As long as my independent variable has an effect on the dependent variable, it's valid. It's valid.
You
can't
already
argue
know
with that. I don't care
but you
about
keep...
feelings.
Oh my god, dude. Now, let's go back because your science acumen's a train wreck. Let's go back and you answer Brian's question. What are the units of angular momentum? Or angular velocity?
Why is that relevant to the conversation, first of all?
Say again?
You're claiming that there's different speeds at different latitudes. So Brian's question is, what's the qualification for angular speed? What's the unit?
God damn it.
No.
Wait.
What's the units for angular momentum? Because he's saying that was conserved.
What are the units for angular momentum?
Angular velocity is in radians.
That's right, in radians per unit time, or degrees per unit time, or mils per unit time. Let me ask you a question, sir. The thing that's leaving the rotating reference frame, is it still rotating? The object that's leaving the rotating frame of reference that you said retained angular momentum, is that thing still rotating? Not the Earth, the thing that left it.
The ball in your example, when dropped, is it retaining the velocity?
It's over, son.
Yeah, it's over. Do you want to share your pain?
That argument. Please. I don't know why you wouldn't accept it, but if you won't accept my independent variable...
So completely ignore the point. So QE's just summarised how he's claiming we have a retention of angular velocity, right? And it's given in radians, and he's saying, does the item that's left the reference frame continue to rotate, i.e. have a rotational velocity attributable by way of retention of the angular momentum that it's got when you drop it? Now, obviously, if that occurs, there's no deviation anymore. So I example it in the ball, it's like, well, does that retain the velocity? Because your example is with it drifting, not retaining velocity. But he wants to go back to his independent variable rather than process that. Yeah,
it's much worse. It's much worse because he's saying that whatever object he's dropping, I wasn't here in the beginning, is conserving angular momentum. It's non sequitur on steroids.
Indeed. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Google and Discord panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!